Well, folks, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway got shook back to life this morning about 8 a.m. when the drivers of the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship took to the racetrack to begin this Indy GP weekend. Again, brought to you by Cooper Tires. My name's Rob Howden. Great to be here with the guys from Road to Indy TV as we bring you coverage of what is a standalone Thursday, Friday unique event here at IMS. Of course, with all that's happened throughout the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic shutdown, the rescheduling of so many events, cancellations of many others. We're lucky to have an opportunity to get to work here at IMS. Bit of a hold right now, those of you joining us here on Road to Indy TV or IndyPro2000.com for the qualifying session. One of the big things that's been going on around the racetrack, Roger Penske has invested a lot in making sure that the grass around this particular racetrack up to the level of, say, Augusta National down in Georgia, the home, of course, the Masters. Fantastic grass there. One of the sprinklers we're being told, potentially, sprinkler heads getting snapped off over in the exit of turn number 7, which leads into the 8, 9, 10 combination. You can see the AMR safety crew, they've got one of the jet dryers out there, and they're going to try to see if they can't get this particular part of the racetrack cleaned up. But nonetheless, we are, as I said, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It is the road course event here. It's 14 turns to get around this track and 2.439 miles per hour. Again, a good look at all the water that got off to the outside of the racetrack. And if that is indeed the outside of turn number 7, we're going to do what we can to get that as clean as possible, dry as possible. As we know, a number of drivers will drop wheels coming out of that corner as they try to get quickly through that left-hander at the end of Holman Boulevard. Mixture of sun and clouds trackside here right now. More clouds than blue sky, I believe, than we had earlier in the day. The temperature, for those of you maybe who joined into the qualifying for USF 2000, up a couple of ticks. We are at 81 degrees Fahrenheit here trackside. The humidity dropping down quite a bit as well, down to 64%. It was about 76% earlier today, so not quite as humid, temperature a little rising, an absolutely gorgeous day, and of course back on track tomorrow as well. Practice qualifying in one race for both USF 2000 and Indy Pro 2000. Today, tomorrow, they'll have another qualifying session earlier in the morning ahead of race 2 and race number 3. Morning qualifying will again, for this particular category, Indy Pro 2000, 9:45, USF 2000 drivers on bright and early at 8 o'clock. That will set the grid for race number 2, and of course fast lap in race number 2 for each and every driver will set the grid for race number 3. It'll be a 1 o'clock start time for race 2 tomorrow for Indy Pro, 4 o'clock to cap off the weekend here as well for the final race of the triple header, and the drivers will be on track. Again, very similar to what they'll do today, 4:05 scheduled start time. I'll maybe move that down around 25 minutes today because we're about a half an hour off the schedule based on what was quite unique for Speedway Indiana this morning. We had a ton of fog come in. We actually got a number of minutes in the first USF 2000 session in the books, and the fog rolled all back in again. We had to go red. And if you follow Doug Bowles or the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on any of the social channels, of course, on Instagram, IMS President Doug Bowles getting to the top of the pagoda, and it looked like he was kind of at the top of the world kind of a shot, more similar to something we would see potentially on a morning at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca out in Monterey, where fog in the morning has regular delays. Right now, having a quick look around this racetrack. Again, that's the shot there coming back at turn number 9. That is 7, 8, and 9, the end of Holman Boulevard. You can see the safety crew going to work. And this is the other shot here. This will be 10, turn number 10. Out of turn 10, they roll their way into turn number 11. We're using a lot of the circuit cameras for the first time here, streaming these cameras. That's turn number 10 there. And again, a crucial part to really carry a lot of speed through 10. The big sweeping turn 11 here, which leads up onto the short chute between the oval 1 and 2. Of course, we're running in the clockwise direction. They work their way up onto the banking a little bit here, not all the way up to the very top, and then dive back into what is now the 12, 13, 14 combination, that right, left, right combination. This is turn 13. Carry a lot of speed through there. Remember, that turn in and getting back on the throttle in turn 12 is what really sets you up for all the speed you need coming out of here. Turn 14, there's the pit in. And, of course, the big run out onto the long straightaway here. Indy 500, of course, like all speedway events, run counterclockwise. We'll go clockwise around the racetrack here. The facility first being built, of course, for Formula One a number of years ago. We may see F1 back here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We've heard chatter about that. Roger Penske in talks with Liberty Media as well. But we've got ourselves Road to Indy competition for you. Again, this standalone event to make sure we get enough races in for our drivers. Everybody, I think, crossing their fingers that we will potentially be heading to Mid-Ohio next weekend. Of course, that has not yet been announced by IndyCar, but we're hoping that we're able to get there. It'll be a triple header for USF 2000 and a double header for the Indy Pro drivers. We've already set another standalone event for the second weekend in October as we'll head to New Jersey Motorsports Park. It's been 10 years since the Road to Indy was at that facility in Millville, New Jersey. We hope to hear about Mid-Ohio, though. And then again, as we all know, the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, which was essentially the site of the shutdown of motorsports here in North America when the coronavirus hit to the potential that the government and the health organizations kind of rolled in. State of emergency around many different states and regions. We got shut down after just one practice session at St. Petersburg. All three of our categories able to get that one session. And even Indy Lights, the one single Indy Lights session was getting the books. And, of course, Indy Lights getting shut down. Being told 1 minute, so we are very close to getting things underway as the drivers will get set to go here. Again, it's a half-an-hour qualifying session for the drivers here in the Indy Pro 2000 category, the second rung of the Road to Indy. Big thank you to those of you who are tuning in on roadtoindy.tv, indypro2000.com, or potentially watching on the mobile app, the Road to Indy TV mobile app. If you're watching on one of the website platforms and don't have the app yet, it's free. Go to the App Store, download that app immediately. All the live coverage of all the events that we have throughout the season, live timing, all the episodes of Road to Indy TV, all the event recaps that are done. My Road to Indy Insider podcast is on there as well. They're all available on there. And as you can see from the shot here, we have gone green and we are underway. Beautiful shot of the pagoda, the pylon as well, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And we're thrilled to be here with the Road to Indy, but I just looked back a couple of weeks ago when I was actually on pit lane there with my my fellow Indy car radio team members calling the Indianapolis 500, all the pit stops, and man, it was just absolutely surreal to have the event there with absolutely no fans whatsoever. We loved on Carb Day being able to call one of the greatest races anytime, any year, and that's the Freedom 100. We look forward to getting a good field of Indy Pro drivers, or rather Indy Lights drivers, lined back up for the Freedom 100 in 2021. But yeah, it was surreal being here for the 500 with no fans whatsoever. Again, I think everybody hopes that we are able to press the reset button early next year, fire things back up at St. Petersburg, and do this thing all over again, do it right. A guy like Tony Kanaan, who was hoping to have his last lap run, his final season, to have it run the way it is. Tony, of course, so connected with the race fans of IndyCar and not able to have any of them really trackside when he was doing his events. Cool to hear him talk about that after the race at Worldwide Technology Raceway, that he would very much entertain coming back for another limited edition oval schedule. We would love to have him back for sure. Tony, of course, a former champion of the Indy Lights program as well, so one of the graduates of Indy Lights. Of the 25 drivers who were in the Indy 500 this past year who came through this Road to Indy. So Indy Pro 2000 out onto the racetrack for their qualifying run. Let's have a quick look at the times from earlier today. 15 drivers scheduled to go. Hunter McElroy actually with the fastest time of the session. Hunter comes in coming off a couple of pretty good runs. Did not have the best of times at Gateway, Worldwide Technology Raceway, but again coming off that strong second place finish at Lucas Oil Raceway. He is in 7th place in points now, and even not that far back. A couple of good runs here, even in a triple header. Man, you can make a lot of moves in the championship points, depending on how things go. McElroy was the quickest, a 1:20.995 was his fast lap, just 9 thousandths of a second quicker than the current point leader and the most recent winner, Devlin DeFrancesco for Andretti Steinbrenner Autosport. Devlin, the driver living in Miami, Florida, but a Canadian. He spent a lot of time in Italy as well. The number 17 machine, scoring that win on the oval. He's now P2. First time ever on the racetrack, actually, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was that last session. Devlin's never had a chance to drive here and was only, as we said, 9 thousandths of a second off of McElroy. And to keep it going, really the top four separated by less than 700ths of a second. Stingray Robb was P3, a winner at Mid-Ohio. Parker Thompson, a winner here at Indianapolis before. In the D-Force Racing, number 9 was P4. Those drivers separated by less than 700ths. Braden Eves just over a tenth and a half back in 5th. Colin Kaminsky was 6th. Artem Petrov, 2 times a winner this year for the Juncos Racing Team, 7th. Manuel Suleiman was 8th. Jacob Loomis back with BN Racing. Had a really good run at Mid-Ohio. A strong podium finish, but again, just an issue with the weight of the car. He ended up getting DQ, but nonetheless showed extremely well. He was 9th. Daniel Frost has been a winner this year as well. Ran the opening round in Road America. Definitely a championship challenger back in 10th spot. Nate Aranda was 11th for Juncos Racing. Moises de Oliveira, Antoine Camo, and Bob Kaminsky, the last of the drivers who turned times. Corey Enders had not turned a time during that session. I'm not sure whether he was on track and just had an issue with the transponder. I wasn't able to get down to find out. I should have did that. Nonetheless, drivers have worked their way onto the racetrack, just starting to get the first laps in. Essentially a 20-minute session. What I will state, and to kind of lay down the early groundwork, is that USF 2000 drivers got a lot of laps in. But fastest laps we were seeing were somewhere around lap, 4, 5, 6, 7 kind of a thing. It was early in the runs where we saw the fastest laps come in. Kiko Porto, I think, put another set of fresh Coopers on at the end of that run to go a little bit quicker. So we'll see what the tire strategy is here as well. Ideally, when we do get some pit stops, we will have a look. I think one of the cameras gives us a shot of the drivers coming into pit lane. I see a couple of cars out there with the sticker still on the outside of those fresh rubber. You can see that flapping around before it gets burned off. So a little indication of a couple of drivers out there with fresh rubber to start this session. Drivers getting a carryover set from Mid-Ohio. Of course, Indy Pro 2000 drivers have done back-to-back ovals. They haven't been on the, like USF 2000, have not been on a road course since the event at Mid-Ohio. And it was in early August or late July. So Stingray Robb out of the gate, lap number 3, fastest driver, 120.620. We'll start with that. Still a ways off. The qualifying record set last year by Rasmus Lint, a 118.995. And I mentioned this earlier as well in the initial show of the day for USF 2000 qualifying, that we don't have any Indy Lights rubber down. We don't have any NTT IndyCar Series rubber down. There's a lot less rubber down on the racetrack. So car's going to skate around a little bit. I talked to a couple of drivers. The car feels a lot more free in the corners when they're trying to get the car to rotate because the rubber's just not there. So I think a lot of teams potentially having to dial in to make sure the cars, they come in with a certain baseline setup based on the fact that they know rubber's going to go down throughout the entire weekend. May have caught a couple teams off guard potentially in that opening qualifying session. Stingray Robb, 120.620. Parker Thompson, 120.823, 2/10 quicker. Robb 2/10 quicker than Thompson. Devlin DeFrancesco now in that 3rd spot. Artem Petrov 4th, and Daniel Frost rounding out your early Fast 5. No times yet for Manuel Suleiman, Jacob Loomis, or Corey Enders. Again, not quite sure what's going on with Corey at this point. Give the drivers an opportunity to continue to get some heat into these tires. We'll see. A couple drivers already onto pit lane. Hunter McElroy, who was quickest, as I said, in an earlier session, the practice session. Again, Hunter likes this racetrack. It's been good here in the USF 2000 car and the Chris Griffiths test as well. He did a 120.99. We're already down to a 120.620. So again, the temperature about 5 degrees warmer than it was in the practice session earlier for Indy Pro 2000. Stingray still up top, 120.6. McElroy right where he was before, a 120.984. The key, though, obviously going a little bit quicker. Yet to see a time for Manuel Suleiman and Corey Enders. One of the interesting things, I actually blasted a tweet out earlier about the fact the unbelievable equality we have across the teams and the drivers this year in Indy Pro 2000. 7 races and 6 different winners. Stingray Robb at Mid-Ohio. Parker Thompson, he's the one next. He and Hunter McElroy will be the next drivers you probably would expect to try to get a victory. Devlin Francesco broke his goose egg with a win last week at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Artem Petrov, a couple of wins, as we know, one at Road America, one at Mid-Ohio. Daniel Frost able to score a win as well at Road America. Braden Eves at Mid-Ohio as well. 6 winners, and of course Cody Swanson winning the Freedom 90 for Legacy Autosport. Looking for more fast times. Nobody in the top 7 going any quicker as of yet. A 121.215 for Colin Kaminsky, just under a 0.6 of a second back. He's 8th. Antoine Camo 9th. Jacob Loomis 10th. Moises de Oliveira in 11th. And Nate Aranda in 12th. All setting their fastest laps on lap number either 2, 3, 4, or 5. Loomis just getting it on track. Still 10.5 minutes to go. Again, we'll see if we can't have a look periodically at pit lane as we expect to see a number of drivers into pit lane, potentially making adjustments, or maybe even putting on that fresh rubber as we expected. A couple drivers doing that in USF 2000. I'd mentioned track position being so crucial for a track like Mid-Ohio. I don't think it plays as much of a role here on the road course at IMS because there are 3 or 4 legitimate places to pass, including 2 long straightaways. Of course, only the one real long straightaway at Mid-Ohio. Yeah, number of drivers in the pit lane for sure here. That's Artem Petrov to the left of the screen in the number 42 for Juncos Racing. The yellow machine, easy to pick up. That's Devlin DeFrancesco. Definitely fresh rubber going on for DeFrancesco. A couple drivers from D-Force coming in as well. This is Stingray Robb potentially coming in. Let's have a look at that car as we go by. Hard for me to pick up the colors of that on my particular screen. Yeah, so a lot of drivers into the pit lane right now. So we're going to work. Braden Eves in pit lane, Colin Kaminsky as well. Yeah, a lot of action on pit lane right now. Almost filling it up as everybody's coming in to put on fresh Coopers. So, as is the case, you've done your practice session. You have that rubber still. You know how the car felt. Teams will then go to work, sit down, debrief with their drivers. What changes do you want to make to the car? One of the things about this particular track, because of the big long straightaways and some of the way the corners are lined up, you have to strike that balance between trimming the car out to get as much speed as you can in the long straightaways, because of course the run out of turn 14 down to turn 1, incredibly long. Coming through turn 4, really, as you're just kind of building up speed, you're going through the 5-6, the switchback, which is the left-right combination, and the long run down Holland Boulevard again. So you trim it out to get good speed there, but when you do that in all the high-speed corners you have here, like this one we're watching here, coming through turn number 11, you're going to lose the downforce that you need, and sometimes you slide the car too much. You're not getting the grip there, and you could potentially start wearing those tires down a little bit. So if you've really trimmed out in a big way for the race, there's always an opportunity for you to burn those tires off a little too much. I did get the update on Corey Enders, not actually trackside at this point here. He will be here for race number 1, we're being told. Corey's got a lot of experience on this particular racetrack, running through the Chris Griffiths tests, his time in USF 2000, his time last year in Indy Pro. Not able to make it here until early this afternoon, so essentially he's going to be jumping right into the car for race number 1. He'll be, of course, counting on the setup of his teammates to get a good feel for that car, but he'll be starting race number 1 at the tail of the grid in 15th position. Good to see Nate Aranda back with us again. Nate did not run the oval events with Juncos Racing. He's had a pretty good start to the season, actually. I was pretty impressed with what Nate's been able to do, given his very limited track time. Lucas Oil School of Racing did a lot of sim time. Has done some shifter kart racing as well. Didn't even get actually a start of a weekend in USF 2000. Broke his back in a freak accident at St. Petersburg. has been on the mend, and he has been very, very consistent. I've been, I said, really impressed with the results that he was able to bring to the table. Kind of top 10, like 10, 11, 12 kind of thing where he was finishing, and that's, in my opinion, showing good speed as well. So good to see Nate back with us. Again, not surprising. A lot of drivers that will do a shortened season elect not to run the ovals their first time around. Stingray Rob still on top of 120.620, but we bolt on fresh rubber, and then they'll be able to make a little adjustment to the car potentially. You got that fresh rubber. It's worth a couple, 2, 3, 4 tenths of a second for sure. Let's just say 2. I don't want to oversell it. It may not be that much. I didn't have a chance really to talk to anybody exactly to ask them what it is. We'll find out, though, after this session. I'll ask the couple engineers what that fresh rubber is worth. So one of the Juncos cars working through turn number 1. You saw the yellow and orange machine of Devlin DiFrancesco already back onto the racetrack as well for his warm-up lap. 5.5, 6 minutes remaining. Now we'll see drivers dial things in. Almost a minute 20, so what are you thinking, 4 laps kind of thing? 3 laps is about 4 minutes. Plus the warm-up lap. So, yeah, maybe more like if you get onto the racetrack now, you could get maybe 3 laps, 4 laps at the most. And that's probably about the exact window you want in terms of these Cooper tires and getting the exact every ounce of speed out of them, truly maximizing it. Now, I've had conversations with team owners, engineers about it, and I remember the first time talking. I think it was on IndyCar Radio, chatting with Ricardo Juncos about qualifying and what it takes to put a big qualifying lap in. I just found it absolutely fascinating. We got one driver getting held up here. That's tough. Oh, hopefully that's an out lap for the driver getting held up. I think that might have been Kaminsky or McElroy potentially getting held up by the other driver coming through. But you have to think about all the components to put a fast lap in. Number 1, the fuel load. So as that fuel load's coming down, that fuel load gets to the point where you're right where you need to be, the lightest amount of fuel to be able to get that fast lap in. You have had to take care of your tires enough to bring those tires up to the exact perfect and optimum operating temperature at that exact point when your fuel load is where it needs to be. Your team has had to make the right call on the aerodynamics and of tire pressure primarily to make sure the tire pressure is optimum as well. So we're already setting 3 things up. Then the driver has to make sure that they've got open racetrack. They've had to be able to manage their position on the racetrack so that when they do get to that, what could be the ultimate flyer, they're not going to get caught up by anybody else. They're not going to get caught up by a driver when they're trying to put that lap down. You've heard that in so many interviews. I got held up on my flyer. I got held up on what would have been my best lap. My theoretical best was this. Those are just excuses because you've got to be able to get the job done yourself. So the driver has then to be able to make sure that you've got open track when the tire pressures, the tire temperatures, and the fuel load's perfect, and then the driver has to get the job done. So there's 5 components to putting this perfect lap together, and I think that's, for me, the beauty of qualifying. A lot of people don't, I think, appreciate qualifying as much as they should. They find it kind of a boring session. Guys are out there just pounding laps away. That is definitely not what it is, especially at this level of competition. Maybe more at the grassroots level, guys are pounding it out because the consistency isn't there. But at this level, these drivers are so good coming out of national level karting. They've won championships. They've represented their country overseas in Rotax events, whatever it may be. They've worked their way up the ranks through F1600, F4, whatever it is, to get to the road to Indy. These drivers can put these laps down. Every driver from front to back of this grid can put a lap down. The key is being able to be consistent, and it all comes down to being able to put all 5 of those components together, and that's the beauty of qualifying. And that's why we always see so many great laps near the end. Just less than 3 minutes to go, and Parker Thompson is on the move. As we said, putting those laps together. Stingray Rob went quicker as well, and how about this? The entire top 6 have gone quicker. They're separated by just over a half a second. Include Devlin DiFrancesco in there at 5 tenths back, and 7th, 6 tenths back for Hunter McElroy as well. Parker Thompson went to P1 with a 120.343, but Stingray Rob steals it back again. Stingray most definitely in the championship hunt. The bonus point for qualifying on pole. You never know if it's going to make the difference between a championship or not. Just a number of years ago, Gabby Chavez going head-to-head in 2014 with Jack Harvey. Jack, of course, now in the NTT IndyCar Series. They went head-to-head all season. Gabby Chavez was able to win the final race of the year in Sonoma. At the end of that race, they were tied with points. When you go to the race wins, right? Who's got the most race wins? They had exactly the same race wins. They had to go to second place. And Gabby Chavez has more second place finishes than Jack Harvey. He won the championship and the scholarship to move to IndyCar. All it would have taken was one more bonus point for qualifying on pole. And that's why these pole positions are so unbelievably important. 120.273 for Artem Petrov. It's a Juncos Racing 1-2 right now. Petrov P1 by 600ths over his teammate Stingray Robb. So Petrov up top, Stingray Robb second. Just behind them is Parker Thompson. Parker is literally less than a half a hundredths. He is, 5 thousandths of a second back. Parker Thompson of Stingray Robb. Just over a tenth and a half back is Daniel Frost. Braden Eves in fifth. Hunter McElroy sixth. He was quickest in the earlier session. He's found 0.3 of a second, but that's just not enough. Artem Petrov in that opening session, where was Artem? He was in seventh at a 121.2. He has dropped it now down to a 120.2, a full second for Artem Petrov, where McElroy right now just with about a half a second. As McElroy up into fifth, Eves down to sixth. Final lap could be the best one for any one of these drivers. Petrov a 120.273. Don't count out Stingray Robb or Parker Thompson yet. In the points, top 6 drivers have won races, or top 5 drivers have won races. Then Hunter McElroy and Parker Thompson, 6th and 7th, have not yet scored victories. They would be the next drivers you would expect to potentially take a run at it. No time for one time for Manuel Suleiman, like there was an issue with Manuel. He's not been able to put a fast lap in the books, and Corey Enders, as we said, en route to the racetrack, and he'll be on the grid for race 1. Checkered flag will fly here at start finish. It'll fly as they come out of turn number 10 as well. There you see it out of turn number 11. That's it for the session here. They'll go through and hit that timing beam. We'll see if anybody else has anything for Artem Petrov. 120.273. Petrov with already 2 wins this year. You'd like that bonus point to try to catch back up to Devlin DeFrancesco. DeFrancesco was second in the opening session. He's 8th right now. Let's see if they have anything to cap it off here. Everybody's still finishing off that flyer. That's it for DeFrancesco. He's already in 8th position for DeFrancesco. Loomis already in the pits as well. Nate Aranda in 12th. Loomis was 9th. Waiting for more drivers to roll through here. Both the Juncos cars are already in. If we can go back to turn number 11 to see if we can find the final guys. Just waiting to see if it looks like everybody else is rolling in. And indeed, that will cap off qualifying, I believe. Waiting for the final drivers to come in here. Artem Petrov and Stingray Robb, P1 and P2, separated by 0.06 of a second. And all Juncos Racing front row. Petrov in the 42, Stingray Robb in the number 2. 3 wins split above them, amongst themselves. In the points, these 2 drivers currently sitting in 2nd and 5th. Stingray Robb, P2. Consistency throughout the year. He'll start on the outside of the front row. Parker Thompson and Daniel Frost will be on row number 2. Hunter McElroy and Braden Eves on row 3. Colin Kaminsky alongside Devlin DeFrancesco, row 4. Jacob Loomis and Antoine Camo, row 5. Moises De Oliveira and Nate Aranda on row 6. Bob Kaminsky and Manuel Suleiman, row 7. And on row 8 alone, taking his first laps of the weekend when he gets onto the racetrack, will be Corey Enders. Again, that wraps things up here, as we said, folks, for qualifying for Indy Pro 2000. And a great job there, as we said, for Artem Petrov. Man, found a full second. That's big for Artem. Quick look at the schedule for those of you who want to join us for the remainder of the day. This is a changed schedule based on the fog that we had earlier in the morning that kind of put us off schedule a little bit. USF 2000 ready to go here in about 45 minutes. 2:30 scheduled start time Eastern for USF 2000. Their first of 3 races here this weekend, a 15-lapper. And then 4:05, a 20-lap main event, round number 1 of the weekend for Indy Pro 2000. 2:30 and 4:05 start times for the 2 opening races of the triple headers here at the Indy GP. Big thank you to Cooper Tires, of course, for sponsoring sponsoring the program and the event here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Remember, main event's still coming, but for now, on behalf of Road to Indy TV and the entire Road to Indy Anderson Promotions, my name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.